Hey everybody, it's George here. Hope you're having a lovely day. Welcome to the George Horlock Coaching Q&A podcast. I'm super excited about this podcast. I've been so eager to get it done, and now finally, episode 1 is here. So for those who don't know, I've wanted to make a podcast now for quite some time, and I wanted it to be a Q&A podcast or a Q&A focused podcast where you, the viewers, send in your questions and then I will answer them for you in a podcast form. The reason I want to do this is because I feel like at the moment there's a huge lack of connection from content creators such as myself and their audience. A lot of people just see their audience as numbers and they want to get those numbers as high as possible. Whereas for me, I actually like to connect with you guys. I like to help you guys. I want to listen to any problems you might be going through, any questions you might have, and get to the bottom of it together as a team. And so essentially, this is why I've come up with the Q&A podcast. I want you guys to send in your questions to me, and then I'm going to answer them. Because while I'm speaking to lots of people right now, I am still talking to you, the I who is listening to this. Me. I'm speaking to one person, essentially. So that you who's listening right now, this podcast is for you specifically. Now, most of you probably already know who I am. You've come across my content before. You're already subscribed to my channel or following me on Instagram, various social media platforms. But for those who aren't aware, I wanted to just give a little briefing about me, my backstory, how I came into fitness and how I came into veganism. And then we're going to move on with the questions that were sent in via Instagram from you, the viewers and listeners. So, well, before I do that, just to let you know, there are pictures that are going to come up, but if you're just listening to this, that's absolutely fine. You don't need to see the pictures necessarily. Please feel free to listen to this podcast now while you're doing the dishes, making some food, training in the gym, going for a walk, whatever you like. We'll just chat, me and you, and hopefully you're going to come out of this learning something, having more wisdom under your belt, being more educated on a certain subject, and hopefully enjoying the experience. So I got into fitness when I was 16 years old. I've been exercising the majority of my life. I mean, as a kid and stuff, I was always doing pull-ups and push-ups and wanting to be strong, and I was always watching superhero films, and I wanted to look like these guys and act like these guys, etc., etc. And then when I was 16, that was my first year at college, I decided to hit the gym, hit the weights, had no idea what I was doing, but I really enjoyed it. I felt like this is my place, this is what I want to do, and I want to help people. I always knew I wanted to help people since I could talk. You know, I always wanted to be a firefighter, I wanted to be a police officer, I wanted to be a therapist, I wanted to be a nutritionist, I wanted to be all these different occupations, but as long as I was helping people, I didn't really mind, and I wasn't bothered which direction I went down, so long as I was helping people. And when I started going to the gym, I realized that I can help people to get stronger, fitter, and live longer. And what better job is there to do than that? And not only did it feel like a job, it felt more like a purpose. And there's a ton of research showing that those who wake up each day feeling that they've got a purpose live longer, happier, better lives. So not only was it good for my clients, it's also good for me as the trainer, waking up every day with purpose. So anybody listening now, I do advise you heavily to go out there and find something that you feel like gives you purpose. I trained for a long time, and I didn't really know what I was doing until like my mid-20s, I'd say. I messed around with all kinds of diets, and I trained in a bunch of different ways. But the one thing I could never seem to grasp was diet, nutrition. There's just so many different routes to go down, and I found myself basically going down each one. I've tried all the different diets out there, but the one thing you do hear from the fitness world is make sure you get enough protein, make sure you're eating lean cuts of meat, beef, pork, salmon, whatever you're eating, just make sure you're getting lean cuts of meat with each meal. So obviously that's what I did, and I took it to the extreme where I started blending tuna fish and spinach and drinking that. And I'm hardcore. I didn't plug my nose when I downed it. I used to take it to like parties and stuff. I was just so determined to constantly fill my body with animal products. As this podcast goes on, I'm going to refer to animal products as just animals, because ultimately I don't see animals as a product anymore. They are essentially just beings who have been killed, murdered, for our taste pleasure. So as we get on throughout the podcast, you might see my language change a little bit, but we're taking it back a few years. So as I say, I was eating a lot of animals and not feeling great. I had so much acne. I can't even tell you how much acne I had. It was insane. It was all over my face. I've still got scars to this day. You can't see them that much, and I've got a big fluffy beard now, so some of them are kind of disguised, but ultimately, yeah, had a lot of acne. Didn't feel great. And as I progressed as a trainer, as a personal trainer, qualified as a personal trainer when I was 18, and then I've been doing it ever since. I've had other jobs, like Saturday jobs and retail and all of that, but my whole life I have been a personal trainer or a gym instructor or a tutor who qualifies personal trainers and works with all different kinds of trainers. I'm very heavily in the field, and I believe that I am somebody that people can come to now as an experienced professional. So as I was a PT, I wanted my clients to not just look good, but also feel good. I wanted them to live long lives. I wanted them to be healthy. Longevity has always been something I've been very interested in. And I've always been very alarmed by the rates of heart attacks, diabetes, cancers, etc. And I've always wondered why it's still a thing in 2023 now. Why are so many people getting sick? So I explored nutrition heavily, and every time I would look into nutrition, I'd go deeper and deeper into it, and I always ended up coming across some spiritual gurus. I don't know why. I just always ended up there. That's what seemed to resonate best with me. Spiritual gurus. India, for example. And I was very heavily into like the Buddhist way of living and no harm and love and light and all these things, right? And the more books I read on this, the more I read about how meat eating isn't moral, it's not ethical, it's not something that we should be doing. And it never sat right with me. Every night I'd be tossing and turning thinking, I kind of need to give up eating meat if I am to be a nicer human. But then I also thought like, well, if I'm not going to eat the chicken on the shelf, then it died for nothing, right? And so I might as well eat them, because then they've died for a purpose, to feed me, to fuel me. I had no idea about the whole supply and demand concept back then. Anyway, time goes on, and one day I was eating a severed chicken leg as I was walking home from the gym, and a dog runs over to me, jumps up, and he starts licking my face, and this woman comes running over and she says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, let me get him off you." And I said, "No, it's fine, I love animals." And that was the punch in the face moment. That was the slap round the face. It was, okay, I'm saying that I love animals, but I've literally got a dead body part in my hand and I'm consuming them. I need to look into this again. So I spent the rest of that afternoon making sure I could get enough nutrition on a at least vegetarian diet, and if cutting out meat was healthy, if it was a good thing to do, if I could still build muscle, etc. And eventually I found out that not only can you survive from not eating animal products, but you can thrive. And there's a lot of people out there thriving every single day who don't consume any animal products whatsoever. I came across Gary Avosky's speech. It's called The Greatest Speech Ever Told or something like that, ever heard. Fantastic speech. I recommend checking that one out on YouTube. Came across a ton of vegan bodybuilders, vegan fitness guys, and straight away I was like, okay, this can be done. This is the right thing to do. This feels absolutely correct and the right direction that I should be moving in. And I went cold turkey. I just completely gave up eating all animal products then and there. And I remember telling the guys at work, and they all laughed at me, and they said, George, you're going vegan, right? You're not going to last 6 days, let alone 6 months or whatever. And it's funny, last year it was 6 years, and I came up to those guys and I was like, it's been 6 years, lads. And they said to me, they had a lot of respect. They said, do you know what, George? You came in, you said you're going to do something, you did it, you stuck to it, and look at you now. You're doing fantastic. So we take our hats off to you, which is amazing. I love when people say that, even if they don't go vegan themselves and they just want to respect someone else for doing it. That's a great start. So that's, I mean, in a nutshell, my story, my journey. We'll touch more on that at a later date, but we've got some questions to answer. So before we get onto the questions, just remember, guys, please subscribe to the channel because I'm going to be dishing these out every single week. That's right, not every month, every single week. I'm going to get you guys to send in questions and I'm going to answer them. Please check the description box down below where I'm going to be time stamping all the various topics that we go over in case there's a certain topic that might not interest you. Also follow me on social media at George Horlock Coaching. I've got two profiles, but George Horlock Coaching is the one that I'm on most. So go ahead, follow me on that. And then when I post a Q&A question, you can send in your questions and I will get around to answering everybody. I actually had loads of questions sent in today, which is great. I appreciate it. I really do. And if I haven't answered your question this week, then I'll do it next week and it'll just go on from there. So the first question is, what are the highest protein vegan foods? I actually got about 5 of these sent through, just asked in different ways. It's one of those questions where a lot of vegans, including myself, we mock this question quite a bit. You know, we laugh at it and we say, where do vegans get their protein or whatever? And we laugh at the naivety of people. But actually, if you think about it, we're not taught nutrition in school. We're not taught nutrition after we leave school. Nobody knows anything about nutrition, really. It's one of the most overly complicated subjects on the market. Why is that? It's to confuse people, and when people are confused, they can buy the answer, right? So if you don't know anything about nutrition, you can buy the answer. And there's multiple answers. People are going to come at you with the paleo diet and say, this is the best diet ever. Give me this amount of money and I'll teach you everything there is to know about the paleo diet. Other people will come up to you and say carnivore is best. Some other people will come to you and say Atkins is best. Low fat, high fat, no carb, high carb. What is the best diet? And a lot of people will say, well, George, you're doing that with veganism, but veganism is not a diet. It's an ethical standpoint, which we'll get into later. But plant-based is what we're talking about, getting all your calories from plants. Before we go into the protein thing, I need to let you all know very clearly, nutrition is not a complicated subject. So I'm going to say that again in case you missed it. Nutrition is not a complicated subject. It's actually very straightforward, as it should be. Breathing isn't complicated. Consuming food, the act of consuming food, isn't complicated. If you give a strawberry to a young baby child, they're not going to poke the strawberry in their ear, shove it up their nose or in their eye. They know instinctively to put it in their mouth. That's where it belongs. It's not a challenge to walk or to run or to move or to speak. A lot of these things are just very natural, basic, and simple. It's the same with nutrition. If you went up to a horse and you said to the horse, talk to me about your natural diet. Talk to me about your diet. How complicated is it? What are you doing that horse over there isn't doing? All the horses are doing the same thing. They eat grass. That's it. They always have done. They always will. That will never change. Horses consume grass. Lions consume animals. Every single animal has their species-specific diet. Humans don't. So where did we go wrong? I'm going to get onto the protein question in just a moment, but I feel like I need to link a couple of things together. Let me just put it this way quickly. When people ask you, how do you get protein on a vegan diet? You can get all the protein you need to survive and thrive from fruits and vegetables alone. Now, most people don't expect me as a trainer to say that, but it is the case. If you were to just consume fruits and vegetables and maybe a bit of bread, some carbs here and there, some potatoes, you'd get all the protein you need, absolutely hands down, to survive and thrive. I'm very interested in history. I love the medieval period and also Tudors. And a very interesting fact is when you look at villagers' lifespan compared to the kings and queens, the villagers lived far longer than the kings and queens. Now, the villagers ate the shittiest diet you could ever imagine. It was literally bread and vegetables, usually rotting vegetables. That's all they ate, bread and vegetables. Literally that. They might, on occasion, if they're lucky, have the odd pork pie that was literally this big. And for those who are just listening, I'm just making a very small circle with my fingers. That's all they ate. And they lived long lives. Not as long as we're living today, but they lived long lives. They worked every single day. The kings and queens always died earlier than the villagers. Why? Well, you might think that they were living a better lifestyle, but actually it's not the case. They were consuming animal products. They were consuming meat every single day. And back in the day, if you were overweight, if you were fat, it was a sign of wealth. So they wanted to get bigger. They wanted to keep eating lots and lots of food. They drank lots of alcohol, but they also consumed lots and lots of meat every single day. And they died early, and they often died from things like heart attacks and strokes. So it's been well known for a long time that obviously consuming too much saturated fat and cholesterol is going to clog your arteries, is going to cause premature death. And the villagers didn't get this. So my point is that these villagers were living longer than the kings and queens off nothing but bread and vegetables. So when people come up to you and they say, where are you getting your protein from? It's a non-issue. The body does not need anywhere near as much protein as we think it does. When I used to run webinars for students on the latest scientific data regarding health and nutrition, we had to make sure that the information was spot on. And I'll tell you, when it comes to protein, this is a subject that is changing every single year. It used to be consume this much protein, then it was that much protein, then it was look at the Eat Well plate, and now the Eat Well plate has changed. And actually they say that the Canadian Eat Well plate is the healthiest one to follow, and it's mostly fruit and vegetables. It's constantly changing. What they say now is that you should, as just a regular guy, you should consume 0.75 grams of protein per kilo, not per pound, per kilo of body weight. So if you're 80 kilos, you should be consuming 80 grams of protein per day. And they also say that that is 2 servings of nuts or 2 servings of tofu. They also say, 2 servings of chicken and whatever, but obviously this is a vegan podcast, so we're going to talk about vegan foods. So just a couple servings of tofu a day, and that's all you need. And what they've done is they're just slowly decreasing how much protein we need. And at the end of the day, how much protein are you going to give a baby child? Right? Think about that. How much protein are you going to give a baby child? Hardly anything. Yet they do the most amount of growing they'll ever do in their life. So you start thinking, well, how much does protein actually contribute towards growth? Now it's your cells, okay, your cells that do a lot of the growing, because your tissues are made up from cells, your organs are made up from cells. Cells survive off 2 things, oxygen and sugar. We get our natural sugars from food, so fruits and vegetables, and we also get them from carbohydrates. But we also get oxygen through breathing, but also from oxygen-rich foods. Again, fruits, vegetables, and carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates are going to be the best thing that you can consume to build size as well. We're going to get onto that at a later point. But going back to your question, So all you really need to do is focus on consuming tofu. I love tofu. Gluten flour, if you're not allergic, look into gluten flour. It contains 75 grams of protein per 100 grams. That's literally insane. It's outrageous, but it's brilliant. I use it a lot. You can bake with it, you can cook with it. I make my own seitan with gluten flour. You can make pancakes with it. You can put it in a blended smoothie. Like it's great. Look into gluten flour, very high in protein. If you are exercising, you are going to need a bit more protein, absolutely, because you're breaking down muscle tissue, muscle fibers, and for growth and repair, your body will need protein. That's an absolute scientific fact. So if you were to eat no protein, you wouldn't see that good results. But you certainly don't need anywhere near as much as you think. And actually, they found now that consuming a high protein diet is carcinogenic, so can cause cancer if you consume too much protein. So don't worry too much about it. But if you are in the gym, sure, make sure you're getting it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that's it. So you could have a tofu scramble in the morning. You could have some lentils or beans for your lunch, or with your lunch with potatoes and stuff. Got to get those carbs in. And then for dinner, you could make some homemade seitan like I used to do. So I would recommend getting 1 gram per kilo of body weight to start with, and then progressing from there. If you need more, add more. But you won't know that for a while. Keep working out at the gym, keep building muscle, keep upping your calories, upping the carbs, more potatoes, more rice, more sandwiches, more smoothies, more oatmeal. Get these foods into you, these thick, energizing, brilliant foods that are going to stack on size and muscle, okay? See how you go with your protein, and then after 4, 5, 6 weeks, take a look at your physique, see what needs work, then you can up your protein a bit more. But please do not do what a lot of these guys do, which is where they consume 200, 300 grams of protein every single day. These are the guys who die very quickly of heart attacks, cancers, all these horrible things that you don't want. So hopefully that answers your question. If you go to George Horlock Coaching on Instagram, I did a post about this a few days ago, and it will tell you everything you need to know about vegan foods and what ones are highest in protein. This is a good question as well, and kind of similar. So are vegan protein sources just as good as meat? Absolutely they are. Yeah, of course. And you've got to remember that all protein comes from plants. Okay, so if you eat a cow, what does the cow eat? The cow doesn't eat other cows, right? The cow is eating plants, right? They're fed wheat, soy, oats, these products. And they consume it and they convert that into muscle. And then we consume the muscle of the cow and we obtain the protein. But it's better to go to the direct source, in my opinion, because then you're cutting out all the bad stuff, right? So you eat the cow and you get some vitamins, some minerals, most of which have been injected into that cow's feed. And then you consume the meat, but you're also consuming the saturated fat and the cholesterol and the trans fatty acids. And these are the fats that build up in your arteries and over time cause a whole plethora of issues that you don't want and premature death. Going to the direct source, you eliminate cholesterol. There's zero cholesterol in plants. Very low traces of saturated fat and extremely low traces of trans fatty acids. So yes, vegan protein sources are just as good as meat protein. It's gonna vary, you know. In a steak, you're gonna find more protein than whatever, a can of beans perhaps. But if you make something with the gluten flour, it's gonna have more protein in it than chicken or tuna or salmon or something like that. So it all depends. But as I say, you really don't need as much as you think you do. Next question. So do you need as much protein to build muscle as they say? This is exactly, I mean, guys, I told you I got a lot of these questions, but I thought I'd have to put them in because I want you guys to know that I'm listening to you and I'm answering your questions. So do you need as much protein to build muscle as they say? And this is what I've been saying the whole time. No, you absolutely do not. Like I say, the RDA suggests that you consume 0.75 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. That's for men and women. But I will not be surprised if that figure goes down within the next 6 months. Like, it's changing that much, trust me. Don't dismiss it completely. Make sure you are certainly getting a source of protein every day, a couple sources, whether it be from tofu or nuts. Seeds as well have really good protein in them. Or getting your beans in, like, again, just get some potatoes and beans in you. It's a great dish. You can make a really good dish with that. And or you could do like a chickpea curry or a lentil stew or something like that. So tasty and extremely medicinal as well. So just to show you guys, for those who are watching, which probably most of you aren't because it's literally just my face bobbing around in the top right corner, but if you are listening and you can have the opportunity to look at some of the pictures that are on the screen right now, one of my old mentors, Coop on the left there, he spends most of the year fasting, which we're not going to talk about today, but he spends the majority of the year fasting. So that's when you don't consume any food at all, just water. And then the other time he eats an extremely low protein diet, and he just focuses on consuming a ton of fruit. He's basically fruitarian. I think he told me he's like 95% fruitarian, and then the other 5% is like the occasional dinner out with his missus or something. But just look at him. And for those who can't look right now, you're looking at a very muscular man. Like, if you saw that guy walking down the street, you think, yeah, he's on a high protein diet. He eats loads of meat. He's strong. He goes to the gym 5 times a week and all of this. And he does train a lot. He trains every day. He doesn't eat much. Doesn't eat much at all. And then I had to put in some pictures of myself there. And as you can see, I'm nowhere near as lean because I eat a lot more food and I'm storing more body fat. And personally, I do believe that getting some fat in your diet, especially healthy fats from nuts and avocados, is an extremely sensible and healthy thing to do. Again, when you break down, look at your body, look at the cells and what they're made out of, they all do contain a certain amount of fat in there as well. As I say, sugar and oxygen are the most important things there. But anyway, but you can see there's me as well. I don't consume a high protein diet. I would say mine's moderate. You know, I'll eat 4 times a day. I'll make sure that 3 of those I have a serving of protein and then at least one sort of shake throughout the day, mostly because I just really enjoy it. So I'll put like oatmeal in there with protein, maybe a bit of peanut butter and some blueberries. I'll blend that up and neck that back. So I eat 4 or 5 times a day. But as you can see, I'm a little bit more bear mode, a little bit bulky. Some people love that. I personally like it. I'm all about building the next generation of warriors. I think we should be strong leaders. But obviously you've got Coop there, who's a lot more leaner, solid 6-pack on display. I'll tell you what, that man does not eat any protein, like, trust me. So that just kind of proves the point. Yes, it's anecdotal, but you know, he's trained a lot of people as well, and they get mad results. So next question, this is a great one, by the way. What's the biggest myth about going vegan that YouTube influencers spread? Brilliant question. And there's so many. It's hard to know which one to pinpoint, but I think the biggest one that I see is that veganism will eventually cause degeneration. It'll eventually cause your body to degenerate and you'll age quicker and your hair will fall out and you'll lose your muscle and you're always hungry and you get gray and you get wrinkly and you become this skeletal version of yourself. I don't know why they say that. I think it's quite an easy one for them to come at because obviously as people age, you do become more wrinkly, you do get gray hairs, you don't look as good as you did when you're in your 20s. And what they like to do is, you know, as people go on 5 years, 6 years, 10 years vegan, they say, oh, well, look what you look like 10 years ago before you went vegan in your 20s, and now look at you mid 30s now. Look at those wrinkles. Look at the gray hair starting to form. it's veganism. Weirdos. But yeah, that's probably the biggest one that they spread. Please don't believe it, because if you can look at the screen now, there's a picture of me for those who can't see. On the left-hand side, I am a young vegan man, and I don't look like I work out. I'm very, very lean. I wouldn't actually say I was underweight, but I look very lean and relatively slim. Just don't look like I do anything. I just work an office job or something like that. And then on the right-hand side, there's me with a considerable amount of muscle growth. This didn't take me long at all. When you know what you're doing, it really doesn't take long to build muscle mass like this. My legs have doubled, if not tripled in size. And this is all natural, by the way. Everything on my channel is always going to be natural, healthy. We're not about cheating or using steroids or anything like that. This is all natural progress. So you can see there that I'm stronger, bigger, more muscular. That is not a man who is degenerating. That is a man who is building himself up to become a warrior in the world that we live in. I'm all about leading the next generation of what I refer to as kind warriors. I think that we should become kind first as children, something that a lot of adults dismiss. Children naturally want to be gentle, kind towards animals, but then our actions say otherwise, and we end up growing up very confused. But I think that if we teach our children to be kind, then eventually we can teach them to become warriors in this world, because we certainly need warriors when you look around and see what's happening in the world. And I think the kind warriors are what this world needs massively. And becoming stronger, going to the gym, lifting weights, it's all part of it. This is a good question. This is the last one, guys. So, how do you deal with vegan prejudice, especially from friends and family members? Very good question. At first, I would spend a lot of time trying to educate, sending links and things like this and videos and trying to get them to watch things. But eventually I realized that if somebody is being very negative towards your decision to be a nicer person, to be more ethical, are they really a friend? Are they really a family member who's loving? Now, chances are they just feel ashamed themselves, or they feel like you're judging them, or they feel personally attacked because you're giving up something that they're continuing to do and saying it's wrong. It's like one of your friends giving up their phone and saying, I don't want to use a phone anymore because African children are mining the resources that are needed to construct a phone, and I've given up my phone. Why are you still using yours? You're going to come up with an excuse straight away. I'd come up with an excuse. I'd be like, oh, I'm using it for this, that, and the other. Oh, it's not all the same. It's not really like that. It's not as bad as you're making it sound. Well, no, it is. Look at this link. No, I'm not going to look at that link. It's probably propaganda, blah, blah, blah. Right? So it's understandable. But at the same time, I would respect that person. Just like if my friend did anything, went on any diet, started going to the gym, started like eating healthier than me, started doing something that's positive that I'm not doing, I'd congratulate them. I would say, well done for doing that. I wish you well on your journey. A lot of friends and family don't. The friends who don't, you don't need them in your life. I know that's harsh, but you just don't need those sort of people in your life. You don't need that energy. You want people to be positive and happy and understanding and welcoming. You know, my best friend ever, he's not vegan, right? But every single time I see him, I promise you, every single time I see him, he gives me a massive hug and he says, George, I really respect you for your veganism. And he says, every time I spend time with you, my respect for you goes up and my respect for myself goes down. And I realize that I need to change. I can't change right now. I just can't do it. I really can't do it, George. I'm struggling. I don't want to do it. There's a battle going on inside me. I don't want to do it. You know, and he'll come around eventually. But that's the kind of respect that you should get, because you're doing a good thing and he recognizes that it's a good thing. So friends and family need to start recognizing that this is a good thing. You'll find as well that you probably won't talk about it much, but other family members will. They'll always bring it up. Oh, you're still on that vegan diet? You're still doing this? You still, you know, eating in this way, you're still getting enough protein in your diet and all of that. But the longer you do it, the more they realize that you're serious about it, and the jokes and things like that start to calm down a bit. So unfortunately, like anything else in life, it is a bit of a waiting game. Just got to see how you get on. Make sure you have all the answers under your belt, and just be honest. Just keep being honest with people about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and how you think it's going to benefit the world. Be strong in your beliefs, never back down, because at the end of the day, you're in the right. Okay, you're on the right side of history. You're doing the right thing, and they're not. So don't feel weak for that. Feel strong. You've got the upper hand. They haven't. You can respond to them in a simple sentence. They have to chat gibberish to get out just a basic statement. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love talking about all this stuff. As I say, please follow me on Instagram at George Horlock Coaching. I'm going to be doing these every week. So next Monday, I'm going to film a new one with new questions. So if you want your question answered, anything gym related, weight training related, building muscle as a vegan, exercise, nutrition, health, longevity, all that good stuff, building the next generation of kind warriors, let me know and I will answer your question. Please subscribe to the channel as well so you're notified on when the next episode goes up. Leave a comment if you enjoyed this and you learned something today. Hopefully you did. And I'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Until then, guys, take care and have an amazing day.